that really big decision. I mean, I just kind of can't get over thinking about like what a major decision and powerful sort of decision that must have been for you. Do you feel like now that I mean, you spend so much time kind of focusing on your writing and trying to work more and more at it, do you feel like it might have benefited you to sort of hold off making that decision?
I think it did. I think I had this discussion the other night with a couple of friends of mine who are artists, and I think right now they're mourning their economic situation, and some of them, excuse me, are spoken word artists, and with the decline of spoken word, they've been really impacted. So they were talking about, you know, the butterfly effect. If you can go back 10 years, what would you change? And initially, I thought, wow, well, maybe I would give my good years to writing. But then I realized that my younger years were not really my good years. They were my silly years. So those times of uncertainty where I was able to make professional gains, like in teaching, because I was far less passionate about teaching, so it became so much easier. There was no anxiety. I gave those years to teaching and, you know, part-time to writing. But I was able to make so many mistakes in those years that I could not afford to make at this point in my writing career.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. That learning experience. And, you know, as you know, I have a son that's 15. I couldn't imagine attempting to be a writer at that point. And, you know, pursue my master's degree and you know, the whole multiple positions, teaching with my son being an infant, or even, you know, a toddler or a young child that required that amount of attention. So I'm glad my life has been paced this way.
It seems really wonderful in a way. I mean, I know. I'm sure that it wasn't all, you know, the years sort of leading up to that decision. I'm sure it sounds like, I would imagine, would be very difficult in a lot of ways. I mean, that you have, if I understand what you're saying, it sounds like two really sort of strong, like, passions or interests that you were pursuing, and that it had to be this sort of decision you had to make, this dedicated decision to writing at some point. But I'm sure it didn't always feel that way. But I think now it seems like it does. I can imagine how it would seem.
And
like
at
it
the
would work out well.
time, cognitive linguistics would have required just as much time as my writing. And that was one thing they made very clear to me. You have to choose, because there is no way that you can devote the amount of analytical time that you need to linguistics and to writing
at the same time.
At the same time, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
As opposed to like rhetoric and, you know, creative writing or some other.
Some other kind of combination, right? Because that's a rigorous field of study, and just in terms of like it requiring a lot of time, like just linguistics is. So, yeah, that's interesting. Would you mind if I ask you a second question? What an interesting answer. Okay, and this is, I guess, shifting gears a bit, but my second question for you, what is a landscape? And you can sort of take that however you'd like. You know, a city, a particular part of a city that you've known personally in your life, that you feel needs to would be worthy of sort of like reclaiming in either like a poem or like a story or something like that. So can you think of sort of a place? Another way to phrase that might be like, maybe there's something poetic about a particular place that you've been that people never seem to recognize. Like, can you think of a place like that?
I don't know if they never seem to recognize, but back in my coveting writing days, I would sneak off. And we lived in northern Jersey then, and it was a little dirty creek, probably a block away from my house at most. And I would sneak away to this creek, and I'm sure my parents thought I was just out playing in the neighborhood. And I would like sit on top of this like cemented like sewer opening or whatever, or drainage, and I would write there for hours. No matter what it smelled like.
Yeah, well, it's like you've got the flat surface, and then would you just go by yourself to go write and with the water and all different seasons? Did you how long did you go to that place? Do you think?
Whenever need be. I don't remember it ever being cold, but I probably did go when it was cold and just ignored it. this is the first time I have not lived by the water or ocean. And when I say I have not lived, I mean lived within blocks. So this is difficult for me to find a place to write. I've gone up to the Lawrence River, but the foliage prevents you from connecting, or prevents me from connecting with the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really found that nautical space. But when we lived in Connecticut, we lived right on Long Island Sound.
Oh, nice.
So I would go out to the Sound. I don't care how cold or icy it was, and I would get right up where the rock walls met the beach, and I would write there probably daily, or if not daily, frequently.
And that actually kind of leads into another question that I'm curious about, that I wanted to ask you. I don't know, and I don't mean to imply that this is sort of static, that it's this, I don't think it is for many, many writers, but sort of like right now, and I mean maybe like this week or sort of this month or something, when you work on your writing, like where do you do that? Do you do it at home or in the library, or where do you have a place that you use right now? Or
at home is where I use now, but I am having a very hard time negotiating that writing space. Of course, because I moved here less than a year ago, the architectural structure is very different. The home that I lived in prior to here was about 200 years old. So structurally, it's different. The way light comes in, it's different. There is no water. There's not even salt in the air. And when you live next to the ocean all of your life, like you're used to salt being in the air. So those are things that I miss. I try to spend time like meditating in my characters or in my subjects to kind of bring me to that point of muse, but I find it more difficult. Yeah, I need to get back to some water or something.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? I mean, to find, like, I think it's a struggle for almost every writer I've ever met to try to find, if you find a good spot, then sort of like maintaining that spot, or having it continue to work for you.
Or exclusivity with that spot.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly, I mean, when you have spaces in the home, or very natural human issues of like family and friends and responsibilities, like, yeah, those spaces of privacy get more difficult to negotiate. Do you have a particular time of day that you tend to write more, or
I'm
no?
definitely, I don't have a particular time of day, but I'm definitely a morning person. And I'm so much of a morning person that if I stay up past like 1 o'clock in the morning, I can stay up to like 4 very easily. So those are the times that I find that I'm most creative.
Wow, that's great. So even like after, like if you've stayed up really, like continuing and then continuing on. Wow. Okay. Wow, that's
like if I can stay up past like 1:30, then I have no problems doing work until 4.
Wow, that's great. And I bet in terms of some of those issues that you mentioned, just as far as like having to negotiate whatever the writing space is, like then it would seem like it would be easier because other people might still be sleeping or things like that. Or that's interesting. I guess, and actually this kind of dovetails nicely into another question I had for you. So you write both poetry and fiction, right?
Yes.
Do you write one of these more than the other, or no? Or or has it always been sort of both of them at the same time?
I thought I was a poet. I really believed that I was a poet. Like I said, the first story I wrote was The On the Other Side of Heaven, and so I remember after I turned that story in, my professor, Dr. Monifa Love, and my mentor that I love dearly and has taught me so much about writing and just life and Black feminism, that she asked me to stay after class, and I was worried because I didn't write my name on the story.
Oh no, okay.
Because I guess she had no idea who the story belonged to. I didn't write my name on the story because up until this point I was known for goddess imagery and the kind of metaphysical elements that I talked about previously that I'm interested in poetry. And the idea came to me because I was trying to deceive my classmates and to demonstrate some range. So I said, I'm going to trick them. I'm not going to put my name on this story, and I'm going to write